Hello guys, I'm your host William and today we're going to talk about John Wick 1. A former hitman who was known for his skill and determination comes out of retirement to track down the thieves who killed his dog and took everything he owned. In this video, we'll talk about the action thriller movie John Wick, which came out in 2014. Time to think back. Let's get started. Turn on the subtitles and the spoilers. John Wick's car crashes into a wall, leaving him bloody and hurt. He stumblingly leaves. He puts his hand on a cut in his stomach. As he crawls to the side, he pulls out his phone and watches a video of his wife Helen on the beach. John slouches and closes his eyes on a cloudy day a few days before this. When John wakes up, he has flashbacks of being with Helen. He sees them at dinner, then kissing, and then she passes out in his arms. The next scene shows John sitting by her hospital bed. He kisses her on the head and looks at the doctor, who picks up his soft board and walks away. The next shot shows John getting out of his car while holding a necklace. His wife had a disease that ended up killing her. Today is the day of her funeral. Everyone leaves. John is standing next to her grave, and a man is watching from a distance. When the ceremony was over, Marcus, one of John's old friends, walks up to him and says, "It's been a while. How are you doing?" Then they talk, and Marcus says that he just wants to see how an old friend is doing. After the service, he says goodbye and leaves. John is shown at home. When the bell rings, he starts to clean up. When he opens the door, he sees a delivery woman there. She gives John a package and gives him some papers to sign. It looks like a small dog. John has a letter from Ellen. She told him in a letter that she had come to terms with her death and that she wanted John to love again, starting with the puppy. John starts to cry when he reads the letter. He takes the dog out of its pen and looks at the flowers on its collar. This tells John that Helen must have given the dog its name. He gives the dog a couple of sheets, but the dog doesn't seem to want to get off the bed. Well, John gets it and puts it on the floor.
Until that day, your best friend, Helen.
The next morning, the dog jumps on John's bed, wakes him up, and then follows him all over the house. John then pours himself and the dog some cornflakes and tells the dog that they are going to buy her some real food. He gets close to the dog, and the two of them spend the day driving around in his old 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1. He stops with 3 Russian mobsters, one of whom is Yos Tarasov, who is the son of Vigo Tarov, a crime boss. Yosef is coming. People who see John's car like it and ask how much it costs. John then says that they can't buy it. Yos then hurts John by telling him in Russian that everything has a price, thinking that John will understand. But John tells him in Russian that it wasn't this bitch Yos who was petting Daisy at the time. But when he hears this, he gets mad and is about to say something. But one of his friends stops him and tells John to have a good day. Later that day, John drives his car to an abandoned construction site and starts drifting all over the place to get rid of his anger. He almost hits some trucks, but just in time, he stops. Daisy has to go to the bathroom while John gets ready for bed. So, when they get there, John takes her downstairs. 2 shadowy men stand in front of John while the third one gets a bat and hits them in the head. While Daisy whimpers, the man starts beating on John. One of the men attacks the dog and breaks her neck. One of the men asks where the keys are, and the other says he's already found them. After taking the keys, the man takes off his mask to show that he is Joseph. He insults John and tells him to get a good night's sleep before knocking him out when John wakes up later. He goes over to his dead pet and lies down next to it. As he strokes her head, he buries the dog and starts cleaning up the mess in his house, all the while thinking about his wife and the attack from last night. Yos drives to Aurelio's store in John's Mustang. Yos tells Aurelio that he needs some clean papers and a new license plate for the car, but Aurelio recognizes the car right away and asks where Joseph's got them. Yos brags about who he stole the car from and how he killed that person's dog. Aurelio tells him to leave, but Yos tells him that he belongs to them. Aurelio says that he doesn't work for him but for his father, and then he hits Yos in the face. One of Yos's goons pulls out a gun and points it at Aurelio, but the other one stops him from shooting. Yos stands up and insults Elio, telling him he will take his business elsewhere. John comes back to the shop later and asks about the. Aurelio tells him that the car was already there and that Iosif is Bai's son. Later that night, Aurelio asked him why he hit Iosif. Aurelio just says that because his son stole John Wick's car and killed the dog that went with it. In response, Vigo just says, "Oh." Vigo seems worried, and as one of his men congratulates him, he goes down to his penthouse. But Vigo says he wants to talk to the man's son. John goes into his basement with a sledgehammer and starts hitting with it. He was looking for a stash of weapons and gold coins to solve this problem, it turns out. Vigo goes to Joseph's house to talk to him. First, he gives Joseph a drink and tells him he's wearing a nice jacket. Then, he hits his kid twice in the stomach to scold him and remind him who he just hurt. Vios. Vigo tells a henchman to stay when he asks if he can leave. Vigo then tells Youth that John Wick was involved with him before he met Helen and chose someone else. John was known as Baba Yaga, the scary witch, or as the person who was called to kill the scary witch. Vigo tells his son about the time he saw John Wick kill 3 men in a bar with a pencil. He also reminds Joseph of how dangerous John Wick is when he wanted to retire. And marry Helen. Vigo gave him an impossible task that involved multiple high-level assassinations in a short amount of time. Vigo was surprised when John was successful, and his work was a big part of how the Terrasol sin came to be. Yos tells his father that he can handle the situation and will finish the job, but his father tells him that John will come for him and that he can't stop it. After telling Yos that he was going to die soon, Vigo calls John to try to fix the situation. But John gets off the phone that night. Vigo sends a team of 12 hitmen to John's house to kill him. John kills them all easily, fighting with the last few until he stabs the last one. A police officer comes to the front door and knocks on John's door. The officer calls John by name and asks if there has been a noise complaint. John says yes, so the officer asks if John is back in the game, pointing to the dead body behind John. John says that he is just trying to figure things out. The officer says goodbye and leaves to clean up the scene and get rid of the bodies. John summons in the underworld cleanup team, which he has worked with in the past. They look like they know this isn't the last time they'll help him. Vigo goes up to Wick's friend Marcus and offers to pay him $2 million to kill John Wick. He also tells Abby, his assistant, to put out a call for people to apply for the job. Marcus is glad to take up the offer. John checks into the New York Continental Hotel, which only serves the criminal underworld and doesn't let assassinations happen there. This is where he will stay as long as he has business to do there. Perkins is a person he knows. Winston, the manager and owner of the Continental, is another friend of John's from a long time ago. Winston tells John that Joseph's is at a nightclub called Red Circle when John asks. John goes into the club where Joseph and his friends are having a good time. There, he runs into an old friend. The man thanks him and tells him to take the day off. Joseph's is having a good time with champagne and women in a fancy Russian bathhouse when John kills one of his guys and comes in through the club's basement. John starts shooting at them as soon as he sees them. So, flees Yos. John kills every hitman in his way, but he loses you in a getaway car. After one of Vito's men stabbed him in the stomach with a bottle, he goes back to the Continental to get his side bandaged. The doctor tells John that if he puts too much pressure on his stitches, they will come apart. John says that the bourbon he bought earlier will pay for the painkillers he needs during his recovery. Late at night, Marcus climbs up to the roof of the building across the street and watches John sleep. He sees someone come in through the mirror. He shoots John Perkins to warn him. Starts shooting at John, but he dodges the bullets. She tells him that Vigo will pay her $4 million if she breaks the rules of the hotel and kills John for him. He fights with Perkins until he has her in a headlock and then asks her for information in exchange for kindness. She tells John that Vigo keeps most of his money and property in a church basement. John knocks Perkins out and leaves her with Harry so that she can help one of their groups. Gold. Harry ties Kins to a chair, but he doesn't know that she's hurt her thumb and is trying to get away. She gets out of the car and puts a pillow over Harry's face before shooting him. John goes to the chapel where Vis has hidden money and business papers. After the other guards in the church were killed, John made the priest take him to the vault. He tells the women in the vault to leave and sets fire to the whole building. Vigo finds out about the fire just as John is about to start shooting at him. Even though he has killed most of Vio's men, he has knocked them out. When one SUV hits another and knocks John to the ground, Vigo stops him and asks why he went to such lengths to get revenge over a car and a dog. John says the puppy was a gift from his dad, but Joseph's took it away from him. He also lets Vigo know that he can either give Joseph's to him or die with him. Vigo gives him to his thugs, and they put a trash bag over his face to kill him. Marcus, on the other hand, is watching from the building next door. He shoots one of the hitmen in the head, giving John time to kill the other. John is the only one left alive, and he pulls out a gun and shoots at Vi's car as it tries to get away. Vigo has to tell John that Joseph is hiding in a safe house in Brooklyn. Even though armed men are guarding the safe house, John kills them and storms. He blows up all of the vehicles that were being used to escape. When he finds Joseph's, he shoots him in the stomach and then in the head. Perkins finds out that John and Marcus have talked and tells Vigo. So, Vigo sends his dogs to Marcus's house to get back at him for killing Joseph and not killing John. They beat him up there until Perkins comes and shoots him dead. Justice. Vigo is getting ready to leave. He tells John that he killed his friend by calling him. Vigo then goes to get on a helicopter that will take him out of the city. John will go to Marcus's house, and Perkins will wait for him there. Winston, the owner of the Continental Hotel, calls Perkins to a meeting while they wait for John to arrive at Marcus's house in the Bethesda Arcade in Central Park. Winston is one of the 4 men she meets. Winston tells her she has broken one of Continental's rules, and that she was kicked out of the group before men killed her. As Winston leaves, he runs into the same cleaner who helped John take the assassin's body out of John's house. Winston gives the cleaner a few pennies. When John finds Marcus's dead body, he plans to kill Vigo. He sees Vigo and their man walking to the helicopter and tries to crash into them with his car. Vigo orders. Avi was going to kill John, but John's car crashed into him. Vigo tries to push John's car off the edge of the cliff, but he can't. The two then fight hand to hand in the rain. Vigo tries to attack John, but John pulls the blade into himself to gain leverage and breaks Six's arm. Then he pulls the knife out of his stomach and stabs Vigo in the neck. He leaves him to his own luck. We go back to the beginning. As long as John keeps bleeding, he has a reason to keep going. After he and Helen watch the video, he goes to a dog shelter to get his knife wound taken care of. Then, he gets a pit bull puppy and takes it home. John Wick 2. In the previous installment, after exacting his vengeance on Joseph and Vigo, John adopted a pit bulldog. His new car is also nice, but he still prefers his old one. The previous holder was none other than Sixgo's brother John, who is currently on the run with one of his men. He was riding a flashy motorcycle, so he quickly severed the tail of John's car, thinking he had escaped death. John took a detour. Then the guy rams into John's side. Vigo's brother anticipated that John would arrive soon to claim his car, so he had his minion pack their belongings and prepare to leave. By this time, John had arrived at the warehouse and had easily dispatched his guard. He then quickly returned to his wife's car and drove away. Despite his fear of John, Vigo's brother does not want him to take the car easily and orders his level 1 mobster to fight John. They attempted to pursue John, and he was hit by 2 cars in quick succession. Fortunately, because he is the main character, he is not killed. Following that, a motorcycle driver pursued him. He gently opened the car door, sending him flying in midair. Despite the fact that the car was destroyed, they did not abandon John. To deal with this loser, John must get out of the car. Nothing can keep him from getting his car back. Vigo brother thought he was finished, but John simply poured wine and called a truce. He realized John was only trying to reclaim what was rightfully his, and the two of them have thrown together a. Because the car was broken, John walked away quietly. John summoned his Mexican friend from the first installment to come and fix it. Death then stabbed his side in the chest one more time, again, burying the past and going about his mundane life. But life isn't that simple. Because the director stated that the film was too short, our Joni boy must kill some more. Santino, an old friend of John's, arrives at the house. He wants John to do something, because in the previous mission, John asked for his assistance and gave Santino the blood seal. That blood seal is a kind of underworld contract. When you give someone a blood seal with your blood fingerprint on it, you are obligated to do a favor for that person and cannot refuse. But John, determined to retire, ignored the blood seal. Santino made a fake smile at John saying that, "Okay man, no hard feelings." However, after leaving, he used a grenade launcher to destroy John's house. John looked at the burning house full of memories and decided to deal with it the old-fashioned way. He brought his pet dog with him to exact his vengeance, so John goes to the hotel to look for Winston. After hearing Winston's story, Winston reminds him that there are 2 unbreakable rules in the underworld. It is forbidden to spill blood in the hotel. This was mentioned in the first part. The second is to respect the blood seal in order to follow the request of the person holding the blood seal. Killing the person holding the blood seal is, of course, prohibited. That is, if Santino requests that John complete a mission, John must comply. Winston even advised him that it would be better to find Santino and ask what his request was rather than fuck him up later, because John knew this was the only way. He sent his dog to the hotel reception and went to see Santino wants him to murder his sister Gianna so he can replace her at the high table. Gianna is currently in Italy, awaiting her new position. The time has come to plan the assassination. The underworld network is far more extensive than anyone realizes. It's a massive industry where all gangsters are prohibited from working together. Winston's hotel is one of them, with locations all over the world. There are also special weapons, equipment, and bulletproof vests that resemble suits. After preparing himself with the necessary items, when John arrives at the location, he sneaks in through the secret door, which has some weapons hidden behind it. Gianna is no ordinary woman. She is extremely powerful and influential in business. She is both gentle and menacing at the same time. Accepting her offer, whether from an opponent or a partner, is a voluntary obligation. Gianna had just returned to her room after finishing with this man. John walked in. They both knew each other, and she understood the significance of John's presence here. When she learned that her brother intended to murder her, she decided to end her life because she was well aware of John's abilities. Because John is a gentleman, he respects her decision. She then stripped naked, cut her arms, and sat in the tub. John didn't expect Gianna to cooperate so easily. In the end, he was taken aback. The mission went well, but he had the impression it wasn't over. When John left the room, he ran into Gianna's bodyguard, Cass. John's intuition told him that something bad was about to happen, so they both pulled out their guns and began shooting at each other. John is able to flee thanks to the bulletproof suit. Cashin instructed the other guard to pursue John. Cashin became enraged after witnessing his mistress's death. John then dashed towards the hidden door. The group chasing him were Santino's subordinates, and Ares is the most capable henchman among all Santino men. This comes as no surprise given that John knew Santino is going to screw him. After a while of fighting, John activated his pencil mode. On his way back to the hotel, he successfully eluded capture. Cashin's car struck him. He desired retribution for Gianna. They switched to fist combat because shooting was no longer satisfying. They fought and collapsed into the hotel lobby. They both know the hotel's territory is off limits as industry professionals. The two were forced to come to a halt and go down to the bar to get a. It was just business, according to John. I have to finish the blood seal contract. Cashin realized that the blood seal was unavoidable, but it was also his responsibility to protect Gianna. There will only be one survivor the next time they meet. Santino knew his ineffective NPC couldn't murder John, so he called him to explain. I sent someone to kill you because you killed my sister, so it's only natural that I sent someone to avenge her. You can't hold it against me. Damn, what a load of nonsense. Santino, brother, like Vigos, starts shitting his pants because he knows how John works. Nothing but action. Without any prior notice, he decided to give out a $7 million contract for John's head, and this is how they manage the bounty. This appears to be a normal bank, but it is the location where contracts are distributed throughout the underworld. People hear issues, orders, and notify the industry assassins in charge of managing the entire process to avoid errors. They are only responsible for informing the assassins. Winston is in charge of the blood seal contract system, ensuring that Santino's tasks are completed and managing the contract assassins all over the world. No one, however, appears to be worthy of John's opponent. Cashin accepted the contract as well, believing that if he killed John, he would not only avenge his boss but also gain some money. He must give his all this time if he is to defeat John. Then he tracked down John and chased him down to the subway. Anyway, there were a lot of people on the train, and the two just stared passionately at each other. When everyone got off the train, they started fighting. Cashin clearly overestimated his abilities. Cashin got lucky the last time they fought because John was out of gas. But now John had Cashin dead with a dagger to the chest. Not to mention Cashin would have died if John had pulled the knife, but he didn't because he is a nice guy. However, John has been seriously injured as a result of this battle. When several more assassins appeared, he began fleeing once more. John dashed over to a beggar and handed him a gold coin. The beggar hid John under a blanket and assisted him in dealing with the assassins. He introduced John to the Bowery boss. This guy reminds me of the Beggar King. Thanks to John, they also have a backstory. He has a scar on his neck. He has been in his current position since then. His gang is made up of beggars from all over town, so there are eyes and ears everywhere. He also receives the $7 million contract for John's head. Bowery is then warned about Santino by John. If he is successful in replacing his sister, the Bowery gang will be over soon. Do you think the $7 million is worth it? So why not give me a gun and let me finish off Santino? Isn't there anything wrong with doing things for the gang? Besides, if John murders Santino, he will be the one hunted down. There will be no association with Bowie's gang. Bowery considered the offer as well, but it is a difficult decision. Bowery decided to give John a bunch of guns while also revealing Santino's location. John didn't think twice about going straight there. When he saw John's cold expression, Santino hurriedly greeted everyone before allowing his bodyguard to accompany him to the exit. John has regained his strength. It's time to blow stuff up. John gunned Santino's boys are being taken out one by one. He dispatched the bodyguards quickly and pursued Santino. Visiting a mirror gallery, Santino used his familiarity with the terrain to his advantage, deliberately attracting the attention of bodyguards in order to sneak attack John. But, with complete focus, John easily disrupted Santino's plans, even luring him out. Ares, Santino's close servant, arrived just in time. Ares is a high-level NPC, so she is more difficult to defeat. Ares is so tough that in the end, it is John who has plot armor. Ares realized she was screwed, so she let her soldiers buy some time before transporting Santino to Sty. John is hot on his tail. Ares is compelled to let Santino go first so she can deal with John. She begins to lose steam after a few punches. John stabbed Ares in the chest with a knife. Then Ares motioned to John. "See you later." John responded to her as well. Of course, Santino now has only one option for hiding: the hotel. He requests that Winston cancel John's. Of course, this isn't Twitter, so Winston didn't give a hoot about Santino saying "you're dead." Santino stayed at the hotel after the threat failed because the law prohibited bloodshed. When John arrived at the hotel, Santino sat down to eat steak while looking very cocky, believing that John lacked the guts to break the rule. He instructed John to fuck himself and beat it. As an introverted badass, John didn't say anything and delivered a bullet right through his chest. Winston was taken aback. "What exactly have you done, John?" John responds coldly, finishing the job. Although Santino was a jerk, John openly violated the hotel's rules. John went back to the reception desk, got his dog, and went home. His emotions were mixed as he looked at the ruined house. He just wanted to live a peaceful life, but he was dragged into an endless killing spree time and again. It's the depth of the ocean. There is no way out once you step inside. Winston invited John to say goodbye in the square because John had broken the law. Winston was forced to follow the rules of the underworld, expelling John from the faction, but due to their old friendship, Winston still allowed him to flee. Winston will excommunicate John after an hour. Chad doesn't care because John is a giga. He wishes to convey a message to the assassin. "If you try to find me, I will clear the entire map." John has, as he did in part 1 following the contract to hunt. We see John fleeing and officially becoming the world's target. After successfully avenging his little dog, John becomes engulfed in another killing spree, forcing him to constantly enter pencil mode. In the previous chapter, John broke the underworld's rules by shooting Santino in the head. Even Winston, a close friend, couldn't. Winston was forced to excommunicate John for the price of 14 million in an hour, and all the underworld assassins will begin hunting. John's only concern right now is the pit bull dog. Even in his despair, he is more concerned with his little puppy than with his own $. He asked the taxi driver to bring his pet dog to the hotel with the last gold coin he had. Then he went to the city library by himself to look for a hidden treasure. John has only left a gold coin, a cross necklace, and a photograph of his wife. These are the final traces of John's life. The time for hunting has not yet arrived, but there are assassins who are impatient. This guy wanted to seize the opportunity without giving it much thought. He drew a knife and charged toward John. To fight back, John quickly employs the book as a weapon. John constantly bashes the guy's head, showing him what knowledge can do. John then dragged his injured body to the friend of his doctor. Despite the fact that it was time to be found, he attempted to bandage him with only half of the stitching process completed. The time has come to go hunting. The doctor had to come to a halt. John was forced to continue stitching himself. He was eventually able to treat his wound. Anyway, the doctor was well aware that he would face repercussions if it was discovered that he had assisted John. As a result, John was forced to shoot him twice in order to stage a fake scene. When he went outside, he was pursued by an assassin. John dashed into a weapons store and broke the glass in order to obtain a gun. He quickly put the revolver together. Other assassins arrived at the same time. He took out one of them, but what about the other two? Despite his injuries, John was able to deal with these random NPCs. He paused for 2 seconds, both of them seeing various knives behind them. John quickly took a knife and stabbed his opponent before throwing another knife at him. "I'm too busy fighting with this guy." So the other guy kicked John out. John took a step back and avoided a fatal blow. Then they switched to knife throwing, insert knife, scent throwing, and so on, evading the situation. He was hit by 2 cars in quick succession. John struggled to his feet and dashed into a stable, pursued by a swarm of assassins. John has to knock the shit out of him with his bare hands. When John became tired of asking the horses for assistance, he wrapped a rope around his neck, mounted the horse, and galloped away, finishing the assassin with a smash into the wall. John rode his bike into the street. A gang of assassins on motorcycles is pursuing him. When a guy decides to touch John's, he demonstrates his abilities. He took out the cross necklace and asked to meet his mafia sister, whom he had cared for and raised. But in this situation, no one, not even her, is willing to assist John. So John took out the cross saying, "This is our contract. You must assist me." However, after using this ticket, John will no longer be associated with this location. The cross was then heated and pressed against his back. In exchange, the older sister would assist John in fleeing to Casablanca. A woman with her hair in a bun entered the hotel and handed over a gold coin as proof of her power. It is a high-ranking adjudicator. Her role also includes requesting judgment time. She went to Winston because Winston had previously assisted John. The adjudicator decided to resume his role as hotel manager. Winston must hand over the position within a week. The adjudicator then moved on to another location, the Bowery gang's headquarters. He must resign because he provided guns to John, but Bowery doesn't give a damn. As a result, this is his punishment, slashing scene with katana. The third person punished was John's sister, with no explanation or comment. He was slashed across the arm. John had arrived in Casablanca by this point. The assassin in this case was also excommunicated. However, the hotel staff escorted him safely to the hotel. Sophia gave John a welcome bullet as soon as she saw him. John now appears to be dead. No one is willing to assist him. Sophia is also a well-known assassin. Because John had previously assisted her, she gave John her blood seal contract, and we all know that the second rule is to respect the blood seal. Sophia is forced to assist John after outfitting her pet dog with a bulletproof vest. Sophie takes John to see her ex-boyfriend. When he arrived at the Sophia boss's office, John immediately spoke up. He hoped to learn the location of the elder. The man revealed that if he wants to find them, he should go to the desert. But John will only find them if they want to see him receive his response. Both sides wanted to leave, but life isn't that simple. Sophia was forced to abandon her dog. Sophia didn't hesitate and refused right away. Her boss shot the dog right away.
And I will kill it.
Even though it was wearing a bulletproof vest, it couldn't get up. Then a battle erupted. Do whatever you want, but don't mess with my dog. The guards are impeding their progress. To escape, both must join forces and break through the encirclement, but there are still many soldiers in the backyard. Sophia's dog joins the fight as well. That's why she brought them along with her two assassins, two dogs who worked well together. The dog charges, while Sophia quickly covered for them, cleared the entire bases. Some guards came to visit the two when they went out, knowing they didn't have a car. Sophia drove into the desert to pick up John. Her blood seal contract has expired. Now only John remains to walk the path. He had no idea how long he had gone before collapsing from exhaustion. He met the elder, who is considered higher in rank than the high, when he awoke as expected. I want to live a normal life, but you must work for us for the rest of your life. First, assassinate Winston. That is your responsibility. Because he has chosen to survive until now, John will have to cut off one of his fingers to demonstrate his loyalty. Following that, John returned to New York and exited the train. The two assassins in front of them were unable to act before being stabbed by an Asian man and dealt with on the spot with a sharp knife. They then motioned for John to go to the square to meet with another Asian named Zira. He has always been a big fan of John Wick. His greatest ambition has been to bring down the legendary John Wick. John pulls out his knife and kills the enemy in 2 seconds before disappearing into the crowd. When John exited the station, a man appeared to give him a motorcycle. He got in his car and drove back to the after killing 2 motorcyclists. Bald Head Zero and his boys pursued and quickly overtook John. Each drew a katana and surrounded John. John responds quickly and knocks one down, but there is another. John completes the next section and then removes the other guy's arm. His arm became entangled in the wheel, and the 2 motorcycles collided and fled. There were still 2 men pursuing him. John swung the katana at his face until only one remained. There are only Zero and John left when he crosses the bridge. 2 people were thrown from the car in front of the hotel. Fortunately, John made contact with the hotel stairwell. Zero will be cancelled if he kills John, just like John. Then both are invited to the hotel. This strange bald man. When there's plenty of room to sit, Zero likes to sit next to John, bothering him. He just wanted to appear calm. He's overjoyed to have finally met his idol. Zero approached and spoke to them as if they were relative. But, as in the previous chapter, John does not really give. John had been invited to meet Winston. Your mission here is to assassinate him. Winston is prepared. It is up to John whether or not he kills him. Winston then makes an offer, kills him, or fights him to the death. They were, after all, in college. In the end, he chose to support Winston. The judge then arrived to hear the two's decision. She called the service department and informed them that the hotel was closing and that death would arrive soon to take their body. They both showed no signs of fear. Winston inquired as to what John required. Guns and ammo, please, said John can lie. Winston then led John to a massive safe. Within the safe, many of the hotel's weapons were displayed together everywhere. They are preparing themselves. 2 buses carrying elite soldiers of the high table arrived at the hotel's door at this time. To take advantage, the receptionist turned off the lights. Then John activated his pencil mode once more. The boogeyman is real. The high table soldier's armor has been improved, so Winston's side no longer has a significant advantage. This type of bulletproof armor was also difficult for John to deal with. More firepower is required if you want to kill more people. That is extremely harmful to John. It doesn't matter how many he kills, it's still not enough. He just fired his last round. So John rushes back to the armory to retrieve his big boy and returns to tell them what one power tastes like. Because this shotgun has a lot of power, John takes them out one by one. After several fierce raids, John cleared the room once more. The elite army was completely destroyed. When John got to the second floor, he saw two of Zero's boys waiting for him to prove he was their father. John drew his belt for a 1-on-2 fight. Despite his opponent's quickness, it was clear that John was unbeatable. Dealing with the two of them quickly, John took a sword and counted down from 0. This is a 1-on-1 fight. 0 is extremely lethal. No joke, but he appears to have forgotten the title of the film, John. The adjudicator had not expected John to be so domineering and incapable of completing her task. She dialed Winston's number to negotiate. Winston, the adjudicator, and the receptionist are waiting for the truce on the roof. They are limited in their options. One option is to continue the war or to return to the hotel. The adjudicator then requests that your boy be killed. John. By this time, John has also arrived at the location. Insert falling scene after old man Winston shot John without explanation. Damn, how does he even get through that? The adjudicator is delighted with his. As it turns out, John was only seriously injured. Bowie's place brought him back. Bowery swore that the high table could go fuck themselves after taking multiple slashes from 0. He asks, John, how do you feel? At the end of the film, are you upset? Are you crazy, bro? John, you respond coldly. I'm furious if you're correct.
Yeah.
This is the third installment of John Wick, the legendary underworld pencil mover, and the story ends here. Let me know in the comments and don't forget to like the video, subscribe and activating bell for notification until the next video. Thank you so much for watching.